No, it sounds funny, but I just can't stand the pain. Girl, I'm leaving tomorrow. Seems to me, girl, you know I've done all I can. You see, I begged, stole, and I borrowed. That's why I'm easy. Oh, I'm easy like Sunday morning. That's why I'm easy. Oh, I'm easy like Sunday morning. Why in the world would anybody put chains on me? I paid my dues to make it. Everybody wants me to be what they want me to be. I'm not happy when I've gotta fake it. Oh, that's why I'm easy. Oh, I'm easy like Sunday morning. That's why I'm easy. Oh, I'm easy like Sunday morning. Oh, I wanna be high, so high. I wanna be free to know that the things I do are right. I wanna be free, just me, yeah. Oh, baby, yeah. I'm easy. Oh, I'm easy like Sunday morning. That's why I'm easy. Oh, I'm easy like Sunday morning. That's why I'm easy. Oh, I'm easy like Sunday morning. That's why I'm easy. Oh, I'm easy like Sunday morning.
Good morning and welcome to United Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Meg Whaley, and with me this morning is Mike Jury, or I should say our Mike Jury and Phil Smith Phil's going to be joining us a little later, but Mike is going to be doing the presentation this morning. He is a volunteer with the Citizens Climate Lobby, and he's also part of the congregation at Lake Country. Please check your email from Patty for any announcements that might be pertinent for this week. I will say that most of you probably already know Tyrone has found an apartment, is working a job, and many people have donated some things for his new apartment. And thank you very much for doing that and for being a part of his journey forward. And now please join me in lighting our chalice as we do every week. May this flame kindle within us the warmth of compassion, the glow of love, the fire of commitment, and the light of truth. Here together we scatter and nurture seeds of spirit, service, and community. And now, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to talk about climate change, specifically about the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which we would call the best first step. And Meg mentioned that Phil and I will be, Phil will be joining us for the coffee hour. I will be giving the presentation. My name is Mike Jury. And I'll talk a little bit, just real briefly, give you a little bit of our background. We're environmental engineers, retired. And, when we were working, our story was to define, design, and implement solutions to environmental engineers. We've done that in water, wastewater, air pollution, hazardous waste, contaminated sediment, worked for a variety of private sector clients and some public sector ones, to notably US EPA and a number of different public water and wastewater utilities. One of the things to remember, I like to remind people before we start talking about climate change, it's a big issue, but we've tackled other big issues starting especially in the early 1970s, which is when Phil and I started doing environmental engineering work. And we've had a number of successes since then, and it's important to remember that as we start to talk about climate change, that we've done and we've succeeded in a number of environmental areas before, and we can do this again. I'm not saying we're done on any of these. We'll never really be done, but we've made a lot of progress. About this presentation, I'm going to focus on a nonpartisan solution to climate change. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Citizens Climate Lobby is, talk about climate change costs and solutions, support for carbon pricing, what we'd consider a best first step, Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which is now HR 2703 in the US Congress, and then summarize it. And during the coffee hour, we can take questions and hopefully provide some answers. Who is Citizens Climate Lobby? Well, first, we're a nonpartisan group, over 120,000 volunteers worldwide. We have over 600 local chapters, again, worldwide. We purpose is building political will for a national climate solution. So in doing that, we develop relationships with Congress, other elected officials, community leaders, other people in community. So first off, although I'm an environmental engineer, it's always good to see what economists recommend. If you go back to January 2019, in an economist statement in the Wall Street Journal, they recommended a carbon fee with all revenue returned directly to US citizens through dividends. And this was the largest statement ever by economists in the US. And it really spans the full ideological spectrum from conservative to progressive and everybody in between. And let's look at the selected individuals supporting a carbon pricing or a revenue neutral carbon fee. Janet Yellen, current Secretary of Treasury. John Kerry, President's Special Envoy for Climate. Currently, 78 Democratic members of Congress are supporting this House resolution. Pope Francis has noted that carbon pricing is essential if humanity is to use its resources of creation wisely. And the International Monetary Fund, that's just selected. Now, I'll note that this is, sometimes I'll give this talk to a more progressive leaning group, sometimes a more conservative group. I often use this slide for a more progressive group. I have another slide that has other groups, such as the US Chamber of Commerce, supporting a well-designed market mechanism, Business Roundtable, market-based approach. Even the American Petroleum Institute this year is getting behind a market-based policies to drive innovation. And the Climate Leadership Council, which coordinated the economist statement that I mentioned earlier, is a coalition of not just leading companies, but 4 environmental organizations and opinion leaders across the political spectrum. So this is one of these things that within climate change, you frequently see a very ideological approach. The one we're talking about here gets support from both ends of the spectrum. So what would we consider the first best step is the Energy Innovation Carbon Dividend Act. It's important to remember that in climate change, in dealing with solutions, there's no one silver bullet. We would prefer to refer to it as silver buckshot. There's a lot of different things we need to do. But let's talk about this one as a best first step. So how it works is there's a fee charged on fossil fuels at their source. So if you're pumping oil out of the ground, taking natural gas out of the ground, coal out of the ground, there's a fee charged on that based on how much CO2 would be generated if you burn those fossil fuels. And what do they do with the amount of money that you get back? It's called a dividend, or think about it as carbon cash back. And that's returned 100% of the net revenue comes back to US households. And there's the other key aspect is the border carbon adjustment, and that's there to protect US jobs and businesses. I'll talk about that specifically in a sec. And why do we think this is a good idea? Let's first talk about why it's good for people. I understand this is a busy slide, but the main thing you need to think about is the quintiles on the bottom are on the left is the 20% lowest earning people, and on the moving up to the right, the highest quintile of income is quintile 5. And the blue columns there are the amount of energy costs. And what you can see is if you're a low earner, your energy costs are low primarily not because of the house you're heating or because of the fuel that you put in your gas tank. That's the dark blue cost. But what really goes up is the indirect costs as you become more wealthy. You spend more money on things, more money on travel, bigger houses, more cars, just things that you buy incorporate direct energy costs. And so what this means is the more money, basically the more money you make, the more carbon fee you would be paying, because you're using more money that takes more fossil fuels. But the carbon dividends, you'll see after-tax carbon dividends, they actually are greater than the cost for lower income levels. So this is the only thing that I know of that's a carbon solution that actually ends up as a net positive income for lower income people and medium income people as opposed to high income people. So just to summarize, higher consumption means a bigger carbon footprint, which means higher fees. And if everybody gets back a similar dividend, that's compared to a higher fee, the lower incomes come out on top. That's also looked at if you look directly in Wisconsin at Congressional District 5, you'll see that 95% of the households in the lowest quintile benefit by this policy, and 4% don't. It's a very minor loss as compared to the very highest incomes. Most people, many people, it won't make that much difference, and the rest will end up paying more than they get back. Again, it's up to you. Depends on how much fossil fuels you're burning, either directly or indirectly. Let's talk about the border carbon adjustment, and what that is. It's basically non-carbon pricing countries will pay a border carbon adjustment. Similar goods exported from the US will receive a refund. And why do we do this? It eliminates the incentive to move operations to non-carbon pricing countries. It provides a level playing field for US businesses and labor. And it incentivizes other countries that, for example, such as China and India. We often get that question was, well, what about China and India? If we have this carbon fee and we put on a carbon border adjustment, it incentivizes all countries to equally price carbon. And that's a very important thing to do. We can't do this all by ourselves, and Europe can't do it all by themselves, but we need to incentivize other countries to do the same thing. So US businesses can avoid paying what's going to become Europe's border tariff in the year 2023. They're coming up with a carbon adjustment. And if we don't have one, we'll have to pay a tariff to Europe. But if we have our own pricing of carbon, then that won't be necessary. So what will it do? It's effective. We'll talk about that. It's good for the economy. I've talked about how good it is for people from an economic standpoint. It's bipartisan and it's revenue neutral. So effective, it will projected to reduce America's emissions by 50% by 2030. That puts us on a path to be net zero by 2050, which we really need to be to minimize the most dramatic impacts of climate change. The dividend, or think of it again as carbon cash back, puts money into people's pockets every month to spend as they see fit. 95% of lower and middle wealth Americans come out ahead or break even. As an example, $3,000 annual revenue for a family of 4 in year 10 of the program. So that gives you an idea how much money we're talking about. So it's just not just economics. It improves health and saves lives by reducing air pollution. It's estimated that 4.5 million fewer premature deaths over the next 50 years if we do this. Good for the economy. It's the most cost-effective means of addressing climate change. This is why it's supported by so many economists. They're looking at it saying, we need to do this, we can do it most cost effectively by putting a price on carbon. And it's much less costly than the impacts of climate change. Carbon price is supported by bipartisan groups, economists, businesses, faith communities. If you actually look at recent polling, the majority of Americans, including 55% of Republicans, support government taking action on limiting carbon emissions. Revenue neutral, carbon cash back to all Americans to spend as they choose, and the fees will not be used to grow other government programs. So what can you do? So reducing carbon footprint on an individual basis is good, but it's just not going to solve climate change. What we need to do is we need to address climate change on the national agenda as part of a national policy. Senate Democrats plan to address climate change in the budget reconciliation bill currently being drafted. And what we need each of you to do, the best thing you can do is really not look at your own individual carbon footprint. Right now, it's really the best efforts are to help convince our politicians to include a price on carbon with cash back to U.S. households. And we're really talking about right now is call and email, because the reconciliation bill is being prepared right now. So do what you can to send a message by calling and or emailing your congressmen and senators. And we can help you with any of this. I'll give you information on which to call us, and you can talk to us in the question and answer period. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. We look forward to talking with both you and Phil at the coffee hour. I'm guessing that people have questions, and I'm sure many will want to do whatever they can to help get this through. So thank you. That was very informative.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, I'm going to extinguish our chalice and wish everyone a good week, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Paradise and put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They pay paradise and put up a parking lot. Why not? They pay paradise and put up a parking lot. Took all the trees and put them in a tree museum, and they charged the people $1.50 to see them. No, 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 don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They pay paradise, put up a parking lot. They pay paradise and put up a parking lot. I don't care about spots on my apples, leave me the birds and the bees. Please, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They pay paradise, put up a parking lot. Why not? They pay paradise, put up a parking lot. And a big yellow taxi took my girl away. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They pay paradise, put up a parking lot. They pay paradise and put up a parking lot. Why not? They pay paradise, put up a parking lot. I don't wanna give it, why you wanna give it, why you giving it all away?